Welcome back to Straight Facts by Dinar Investor.
The U.S. Treasury imposes sanctions on Iraqi officials, including militia leaders December 6, 2019. Politics. December 6, 2019, 10 hours, 44 minutes, and 21 seconds. Shafak News. The U.S. Treasury Department announced on Friday the imposition of sanctions on 4 Iraqi officials for human rights violations and corruption. The U.S. sanctions included the leader of the Asayb al-Haq group, Qais Khazali, and his brother Laith Abdul Mahdi. We will send the final accounts to Parliament from 2013 until now. 1851 April 12, 2019. Resigned Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi confirmed, on Wednesday, that the Council of Ministers will send to Parliament the final accounts from 2013 to date. Abdul Mahdi said during the meeting of the Council of Ministers and followed by the agency information, the Council of Ministers will send the final accounts of the House of Representatives in the coming days, noting that the accounts will include the final accounts since 2013 until this year. He added that all previous governments since the era of Abdul Karim Qasim and the first Ba'athist era and previous democratic governments did not send the final accounts to the House of Representatives to know the size of the loss and profit. Noting that the final accounts are important to know the government's financial and economic policies. Al-Hakim affirms support for the letter of reference and calls for the speedy selection of a president for the transitional government. December 6, 2019, 1440. Baghdad. And the leader of the Al-Hikmah movement, Mr. Ammar al-Hakim, demanded, on Friday, the need to expedite the selection of a president for the transitional government who is characterized by integrity and independence, away from all forms of external interference, and the provision of a fair and just law for the elections, in addition to preparing for early elections. Al-Hakim said in a statement that he received, where, a copy of it, we confirm what the Supreme Religious Authority called for in its statement during Friday's sermon for this day, a clear condemnation of all forms of violence, vandalism, and damage to public and private property that does not have a legal or legal justification, and we demand the judiciary to hold all those involved in acts of violence, sabotage, killing and kidnapping from any party. He added, we call on peaceful demonstrators and security forces to work to sort out the engineering elements who are striving to divert the peaceful path of the demonstrations demanding reform. And we renew our salutations to our generous Iraqi clans for their usual role in extinguishing sedition and protecting civil peace. And we express our support to our armed forces in the performance of their tasks. Patriotism is in maintaining security for protesters, government installations, and public and private property. Al-Hakim called on everyone the need to expedite the selection of a president for the transitional Iraqi government who is characterized by integrity and independence, away from all forms of external interference, and the provision of a fair and just law for elections and preparation for early elections. Urgent transcript of Supreme Sermon Friday, December 6, 2019. Baghdad. Al-Furat News. The Supreme Religious Authority stressed today the choice of the new Prime Minister and its members within the constitutional period away from any external interference. The representative of the Supreme Religious Authority in Karbala, Sheikh Abdel Mahdi al-Karbali, read during the Friday sermon today the text of the statement of the Office of the Supreme Authority, Grand Ayatollah Imam al-Sayyid Ali al-Sistani, to pressure those who have the authority to make room for real reforms in the administration of the country, but the main condition for this is that it is not drawn into acts of violence, chaos, and sabotage. In addition to not justifying these actions legally, it will have adverse repercussions on the reform movement and lead to the decline of security with them little by little. In spite of all the precious blood that was shed in order to achieve their legitimate, we must pay attention to this and beware of granting an excuse for those who do not want reform to be achieved. Aminov from this side. He added, maintaining the peaceful demonstrations and avoiding acts of violence and sabotage is extremely important, and it is a solidarity responsibility of all. It is also the responsibility of the security forces to protect peaceful demonstrators and allow them to express their demands freely. It also falls on the demonstrators themselves not to allow saboteurs to seize this address, interfere with their ranks, and assault the security forces or on public or private property and cause harm to the interests of citizens. Supporting and respecting the security forces, enhancing their morale, and encouraging them to play their role in preserving security and stability in the required manner is everyone's duty. Because these people are indispensable in avoiding chaos and disturbing public order, and everyone has noticed what happened in some areas when the security forces could not do what is expected of them in this regard. Until the esteemed tribesmen endowed themselves, and they played a prominent role in protecting civil peace and preventing chaos and devastation, so they have all thanks and appreciation for that. But work should be done to return matters to their natural context in all regions, from the official security forces taking responsibility, maintaining security and stability, and protecting government installations and citizens' property from attacks by saboteurs, while committing to act with full professionalism in dealing with all protest actions so as not to repeat the tragedies of the past weeks. We condemn once again all the shedding of innocent blood and damage to private property and public institutions during the previous days. We call on all those affected to take legal means to claim their rights, and call on the judicial authorities to hold accountable and punish anyone who committed a criminal act, from any party it was, as determined by law. We repeat here the warning from those who lie in wait for the country and seek to exploit the protests demanding reform to achieve certain goals that harm the higher interests of the Iraqi people and are not consistent with its inherent values. He added, "We also reiterate what has been stressed by the religious authority that it is for all Iraqis without any difference between their affiliations and orientations, and works to secure public interests as much as possible, and should not be used by any of the groups participating in demonstrations calling for reform so as not to be counted on plural without plural." He concluded the statement of the Supreme Authority by saying, "We hope that the head of the new government and its members will be chosen within the constitutional period and according to the aspirations of citizens away from any external interference, bearing in mind that the religious authority is not a party to any talk in this regard and has no role in it in any way." Al-Rafidain issues guidance to MasterCard holders on advances and loans December 6, 2019. Banks. Economy News Baghdad. Rafidain Bank announced on Friday that it has received several government departments wishing to settle the salaries of their employees and give them a MasterCard International card. The bank said in a statement, Economy News received a copy of it, that the salaries of a number of employees of state ministries and institutions have been localized and given them the electronic card and receiving their monthly salaries through it. He pointed out that MasterCard holders can take advantage of the financial features and services recently launched by the bank, from advances and loans and the presentation of those advances by the bank's branches located in Baghdad and the provinces. TV. U.S. sanctions ahead of Iraqi officials December 6, 2019. Politics of the protests in Iraq. U.S. sanctions. December 6, 2019, 2 hours, 25 minutes, and 52 seconds. AAA+. As violence against protesters rises in Iraq, especially in the southern provinces where dozens have fallen in a single day, U.S. sources have indicated that Washington intends to impose sanctions on Iraqi officials. According to Al Arabiya TV, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said his country would use its legitimate authority to impose sanctions on corrupt figures who steal the wealth of Iraqis and those who kill and injure civilian protesters. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs David Schenker has brandished sanctions Washington may soon impose on those responsible for what he called atrocities in Iraq, denouncing the horrific use of force against demonstrators. For the first time since 2014, the region delivers its oil to Baghdad and announces important details. December 5, 2019. The Minister of Finance in the Kurdistan Regional Government Awad Sheikh Janab on Thursday announced the delivery of the federal government in Baghdad 250,000 barrels of crude oil per day, in the first time since 2014. "We have decided to deliver 250,000 barrels of oil per month to Baghdad," Sheikh Janab said at a joint news conference with Provincial Council Secretary Amin Rahim and Chief of the Provincial Council of Ministers Omid Saba. "We have agreed on a formula on the payment of loans," he said, adding that most of the Kurds' demands have been met. He pointed out that we reached an agreement with Baghdad on the budget and oil, pointing out that reducing the share of the Kurdistan region in the financial budget was a political decision. "Unfortunately, our negotiations this time with Baghdad have been successful," he said, stressing that if Baghdad abides by the agreement, there will be no problems with the payment of salaries. He continued that the ball now in the court of the Iraqi parliament with regard to the budget, stressing that the Kurdistan region will abide by the agreement we reached with Baghdad. For his part, Secretary of the Council of Ministers of the Kurdistan region Amin Rahim that the region will contribute to raising financial revenues for Iraq in accordance with the agreement reached with the federal government on the budget and oil. Rahim added that the federal budget for 2020 is still in the process of legislation. He said that the Kurdistan region will contribute to increase financial revenues for Iraq in accordance with the agreement reached with Baghdad, stressing that the recent agreement is in the interest of both sides. He added that Iraq borrowed $62 billion and part of it has nothing to do with the Kurdistan region. He pointed out that the region will provide Baghdad with information about the debt of the Kurdistan region, noting that the debt of the region will be installed in the financial budget for next year. Rahim said there was an understanding between Erbil and Baghdad about the debt. Al Taif Islamic Bank offers its customers the service of buying and selling foreign currencies at the best competitive prices supported. Note that the price of the dollar may change. Speed and completion and accuracy in dealing. Islamic Bank of Latif. Sales Purchase Foreigns. Department Awareness Banking and Protection Public.